Hello, BookTube. And I've been wondering something because over past many years or decades, I've had conversations regarding short stories with many, many people. People who love reading short stories, those that hate short stories, and those that just don't understand them or say they don't understand them. Um, so, how do you read a short story? Well, the easy answer is you open up the book and you run your eyes across every line, read it out loud, subvocalize, or however you want to do it. And that's how you read a short story. But is that all there is to it? I don't think so. I think there's a bit of a knack to reading short stories, or to appreciate short stories as opposed to, not opposed, but alongside of novels. Now, you get a short novel, 200 pages, 250 pages. You get novelettes and novellas, whichever the definition of each of those are. Um, and it take, yeah, you can read those in one sitting. But there are many things that are being told in a novel. Then what happens when you get to a novel like Les Miserables or other big novels that are 1,000 pages or more, or even less than that? You need to, you People say, well, they read them slow so they can digest them and understand them. Yeah, fine. However, you need to get to the end before you know what the author is really doing, and it's a lot to keep in track, like every little bit, every nuance that the author was doing. And that's why rereading big novels is sometimes really great, because you sort of miss things, you overlooked them, you forgot about them, or didn't even see them. But let's look at a short story then. You've got something that's anywhere from like a page to 20 pages, 30 pages, say. And it's encapsulated in one little bit. You could do it fairly easy in one chunk of reading. And you don't need a lot of time, like, waiting for an appointment, or, anything like that, or a little time before bed or something like that. You're waiting for someone, you're waiting for delivery, whatever. You can fit in short stories, and I'll include essays here for that as well. And I think they work differently, and the way to approach them is to think of it that the author is trying to say something, one thing usually, sometimes several, like there can be layered. And that's the joy of short stories. They can be just for fun, like a little ditty, or they can, in a small little package, say so much and be layered as well. But that allows you to get through the whole thing and ponder it. That's the one thing that I find, is that you can be finished the story and you go, yeah. But then a lot of times it'll resonate. It'll stick with you because you can remember more of the details because it's so short. And it'll stick. At least with me, it sticks with me, and it'll crop up at times. It resonates. I've just read a collection of, well, there was journalistic pieces, short stories, and poetry by Juna Barnes. I'd never read her before. I didn't think I actually knew who she was until I saw a picture of her, and then I go, yeah, I probably did, but I never connected a name. But there's a section of short stories in here that are not your typical short stories, but they're amazingly good. They are resonating with me. I finished reading it, and I'm still thinking of bits of them or the whole story, and the implications of that story, the ideas she's trying to get through. If sometimes she's, it may be a different idea maybe than what she was expecting, or at least I'm interpreting it maybe differently. But you see, that's easy to do with a short story. So I would suggest, like, because I was recently speaking to someone, and they were saying that they never really thought of short stories or short pieces before because they like big books, and I think they're starting to sample some, and I hope they will continue because, as I say, there's so many things that are fascinating about short stories. Um, Most people who read science fiction, or at least of my age, would have come through reading short stories first. That was where their gateway to science fiction usually was. Maybe not so much now, like in the past 30 years or so, but my age or older, I'm sure it was short stories for the most part. For literature or fiction, a lot of times it's novels. But there was a time where short stories were prolific everywhere. Every newspaper had short stories. There were magazines chock full of these things. And, you can still get reprints of short stories. And people are still writing short stories. But they're usually in the specialty magazines or in specialized literary journals. Um, and they will occasionally, somebody will come out with a collection either of that publication or that author if they've written enough. But still, it's the kind of thing. Approach it from the point of view that you're discovering something. You're going to delve into a world here that is short and sweet, and think about what you've read. And the joy is that if you read it and you realize, wait a minute, I think I don't get it, you could go back and reread it because it's so short, and then hopefully get what it's saying. But as I say, there's different types. There's some that are very complex short stories that will have a story on the surface, but it has other meaning. And if you, yeah, it's just but it's usually a small encapsulation of an idea or one little small incident that's happening. And I love some of those short stories, which just describes a walk down, a country road or something like that, or going for or an afternoon, and all these things that are happening. And it's like it's a reflection of life in many ways in a very small form. And as I say, in novels you have to read the whole novel, and sometimes there's too many things going on in a novel for me anyway. I want something pared down. I want something, a simple thing of one idea, one little scene, and ponder that. And as I say, days later, weeks later, they will actually pop up in my mind and they'll resonate sometimes more than novels. So yeah, um, are you a fan of short stories? How do you read short stories? Do you just read them to, because you want to read something and they're short, or do they actually resonate with you, and do you ponder on the short story longer than you do a novel? I'd love to hear from you. Thank you, BookTube.